coming at you with another crypto update here. Today we're just going to quickly go over the markets and then a couple altcoin charts and just ways how you can spot extra confluences for either, picking good areas to DCA and invest, or if you want to trade, they're better, more favorable ways for you to trade and find profitability that way. So let's just get right into it. So here we are with the total market cap on the weekly chart. You can see even through all the fear and everything we've had, it's still like it's down just a tad, but it's right there where it doesn't look bad on a weekly chart at all, right? We're still in a very bullish trend on the week. Whether or not that continues to come down, I think as we went over in previous videos, it's still it looks like it's going to break down here, at least in my opinion, and come down probably into an area like this, and then from there we'll monitor it to see if it's going to change direction, start going back up, or if it's going to continue lower and we look at an area like this. So we'll monitor that when it comes. USDT dominance here. This is an inverse chart. So when this is going up, the crypto market's going down, and when this chart is going down, the crypto market's going up. So us being, if you're watching this video, probably a crypto investor or trader, so you're wanting the market to go up. So we want this to fall off. Now, imbalances, as I'm pointing out, imbalances, fair value gap, same thing, but they're very important. This little one I've marked in here is a 1 hour. As you can see right here, it doesn't take much, and it's not just any fair value gap because, they're everywhere, but you look at points where, there's a huge zone of liquidity here that has never been taken, right? Like it never gets liquidated by any of the highs throughout this entire zone, right? So this is the point we're looking at, and there's a fair value gap from this point to that point, right? I'm not saying this was going to hold for sure, but it's always good to see where we're coming from, right? You can see this does get a reaction out of it and then starts to move lower, but of course that doesn't exactly hold, at least not right now. We are moving a little bit lower, but I still expect this probably to come up into this level because on a bigger time frame, it's a daily fair value gap. This one is pretty important as this one closed through any of the bullish fair value gaps we had in this area. This would also just correlate fairly well with this, the total market cap coming down into here. Again, not saying that's exactly where it's going to reverse from, but that's a pretty good level to be looking at for the time being. Others we've marked out. We have this daily fair value gap, which looks like it could obviously be in line as well with the total market cap. We have the lower levels too, but we'll see when it gets here if this is more favorable for entries. One thing I would like to point out as well when talking about whether or not the market is topped, obviously, is if we look at altcoins on like a monthly scale, right? Like, let's just remove all these drawings. On a monthly scale, we're still way down there, right? Like Cardano is one that's held up pretty well in general, but Cardano is here. Graph token, right? It's way down there. Sand, is a runner from last time. They're all just they're at their lows, and if we're gonna crash the way we have in previous cycles, all of these coins have to be pumping. They need to either be at their all-time highs or near. But I mean, the tokens, coins that ran lots from the last bull market, they're not likely, most of them, to make new all-time highs, right? They just won't, right? That's how it works. Because then this cycle, there's new coins, like Caspa, Sui, coins like that have just really run like crazy. So let's just look. One thing I was gonna say, like I was talking about, when good news happens at tops of the market, right? Bad news happens at the bottom. So to me, I still haven't seen that real euphoric phase that we saw last bull market, right? If you can remember, pretty much the top of the entire market, what day that was? It was a Coinbase IPO, right? That was April 14th, 2021. If we go to the Bitcoin chart here and go onto the daily chart, we can find April 14th, 2021, right? That is the top here. Not the entire top of the entire bull run, because we did come back to move just a little bit higher before that was the top of the actual entire bull run. But if you can see, it comes major top. This right here, as you can see on the bottom, April 14th, 2021 is this candle. It was the absolute top, right? So that's what happens. These big institutions and market makers, they manipulate the data to make you buy in at the top as they're selling into you and selling into strength, right? Same thing as if you look here, the FTX collapse didn't mark the exact day, but it was right around when the actual exact bottom was from the bear market. So if you look at November 11th, 2022, let's find that on the chart, right? Let's go into here. November 11th, right here, right there. This was the low right here of the entire bear market. So like right in there, you can see, but it's meant to shake you out, to have fear so that you sell your positions and then they can buy up cheap positions before they run it back the other way. So anyway, my whole point is saying that, if I'm just repeating myself, is that I haven't seen any really, really fantastic news happening here at the front, at the top. Like not that same euphoric feeling before. Like the market sentiment isn't quite there, and it's because the altcoins haven't reached new all-time highs, and we haven't hit alt season yet. So that's another reason why I believe that's coming. Let's look at a couple altcoins. I just want to go over something quickly here, how important fair value gaps and liquidation points are, right? So if we're looking at this level here, this fair value gap closed through this liquidation point. This makes this fair value gap very important, right? So if we take the box here and make a fair value gap, look where it comes up to during these rallies. Right there, right? As you can see, this point did not take that point out higher, so naturally this becomes a short-term target for me when looking at buying Polkadot and take it to the high. I should also point out, at this level, at this point of this stage of the bull market, I don't really think fundamentals matter. Everything's just going to pump just on hype. It's so, if you're thinking, oh, this coin's dead, blah, blah, blah. Well, in a way, though, that's how you should be interested in this coin, because it hasn't seen any pumps really. And that generally, even the dino coins, as I've heard people refer to them, they pump when the actual alt season comes, right? So let's just point, things like this. Let's show you how important little fair value gaps and liquidation points are. We're on a monthly time frame. Let's just take this back a second here. Let's look here and see that, on a monthly time frame, it doesn't look like much, right? This little fair value gap. In fact, it might look like nothing. But if we play this in reverse, where does it come to? Let's just mark up the high so it's even more obvious. Let's just play the whole thing. There you go. You can see that it spikes up, and then after it spikes that up, it will come and liquidate this low, right? That's how this market works. It moves from inefficiencies, which are fair value gaps, to liquidation points. It happens over and over and over again. That's why it's our job to figure out if it's coming from a liquidation or a fair value gap, so we can determine where it's headed, right? Now, there are ways that we can get in, obviously, on lower time frames and have a little bit more, confidence in our position, and to know whether or not it's going to hold, or we expect it to hold. This is Polkadot, where there's a very interesting area right here, to me at least. It's because this low was not taken out at all. It built up all these little liquidation points. We did liquidate this point as well high, and then started moving lower, which means that we could be moving to a fair value gap, an inefficiency. So we got one right here on the daily time frame, right? This one's very intriguing, interesting, whatever you want to say, to me, because this could, liquidate these lows, come in here, reverse, and go higher. This point I like as well, because this is as we pointed out before, high resistance liquidity run, and that is more likely to hold than if this low was not taken out, right? So this is a point where, and I'm not saying it will reverse from here. We just have to see what happens when price gets down to there. It could very well come to this liquidation point here and do something like this, right? Where it could come, right through, do something like this, come down, rebalance, and then what we'd want to find is a fair value gap in this area, like that, and then take it higher. And if you can get quite a favorable risk to reward in this scenario, because you could be buying here with your stop under there, protecting the entire area, and then your target could be right up there, which if you look at risk reward is 1 to 16, right? I'm not saying that's going to exactly happen like that. I'm just saying that's theoretically how you can look at an area like that to try and take advantage of it, right? So we'll monitor that when it comes, but as of right now, I am really looking at this fair value gap on Polkadot. I think that this is a good area to take a stab at it if price comes to that level and it gives us a favorable reaction. If we look at another coin like Cardano, this is pointed out if you look at a monthly time frame, this one's run quite a bit already. It has room. Obviously, it could still hit a new all-time high, but even if it does, it's only a 227% move, which I'm not saying that's bad. But if you look at some of the other coins, you'll get 5 to 10x, back to their previous all-time highs. Whether or not they make it there or not, you can take profits up along the way. The one thing I'd like to point out on this chart here is Cardano. Is I just want to show again. I want to highlight the importance of these liquidation points, right? So I have this marked up here like this because this is a weekly fair value gap, which you can see it retraced right into here. And I'll just move this down just a little bit here. On this time frame, it looks like this is just perfect equal lows, like a double bottom. But if we were to go down on different time frames, you'd be able to see that this low comes lower than that low. And it might not seem like it's a big deal, but it is, because at least it is the way that I trade and the way that I invest, because I have more confluence in this being a high resistance liquidity run than if this wick had stopped short of that, right? And the reason why is if we take this tool here, the replay tool, and move back, we can move to like a 1 hour. And there's plenty of opportunities where you could be buying, and just every time you buy, everything fails. It just fails over and over and over again and just keeps taking out lows. But once you have that exact point right here where it clearly liquidates the low here, you can have a lot more assurance that this rally is going to continue, right? So there's ways to get involved here after you see liquidations like this, points like this, and then this ultimately. And hypothetically, if you were watching this and got involved, at any point in here and protected this low, you've got an incredible risk to reward moving up. Even if you just targeted that high, it's a 1 to 10, right? Like, fast forward, and that's not the only high. Like, what if this goes on to make a new all-time high? That's not even an all-time high. That's just the high of that range, right? So that's where I'm looking at with that. Graph token's an interesting one here where, this, for me to have more confidence taking this 100%, I would have liked to seen this low liquidate that low for a high resistance liquidity run. But can't ignore the fact that this on a monthly time frame has a lot of upside. So if we're looking at this point, we're looking, and again, you never know what's going to happen for sure, but you could look for points like this to be liquidated, points like this to be liquidated, points like this, and then once it liquidates these points, that's where you look for reversals in price. That's where you look for displacements in the other direction after the liquidation point. And it's very possible, that somewhere along here, it comes in, liquidates that, goes higher like that, or, just drops right off and takes this one out, and, things like this, those are all possible. It could take out that point. If the market really goes down, it could take this point out. And even that, and that would be definitely an all-time low. And I don't personally see that happening because that would have to be quite the big drop here, from current price, 46% to get down there. But if it liquidated that point and then started reversing, even just getting back up to this high, you'd be, looking at 8.5x, right? So there's opportunities in this market coming. We just have to be patient and look mostly when Bitcoin, Total, and others seem to be finding a base and returning back to their bullish price action. That's when we're most interested, right? There's a coin like Kaspa, for example, which is one of the big runners from this most recent bull run. And again, if you look at the monthly time frame, I'm not telling you not to buy Caspa, but again, if it's just it just happens over and over again. These fair value gaps just always get price coming to them. But anyway, um, it's up to you whether or not you want to get involved in this coin. But for me, I feel like this coin has already ran so hard that the upside is just very limited. Who knows? Maybe when and if it made an all-time high again, it continues to just go on a monstrous rally like that. But 133% from current price back to all-time high. So it's nothing to sneeze at, but there's better risk to reward out there. If I was monitoring this, I just look right at the daily chart right there. I'd see there's a liquidation here, created the high resistance liquidity run. There's a small fair value gap in here, which price is balanced up for, and the only thing I'm looking at would be this, right, for something like Caspa, where it could liquidate all these lows and it's coming right into this fair value gap, and you could be looking to take that higher. But again, even if you do that, unless you're trading on leverage, which that's a whole nother story, then this could be an extremely desirable trade to take if that's the case. But even if you get it down here, you're looking at not even 2x back to all-time highs. So it depends on your style. If you're trading with leverage, this could be a very, very favorable setup. We'll cross that bridge when it comes, but I still don't see any reason to be concerned. I think that we haven't met the upside targets, and even though it sucks temporarily to see your portfolios dip, I think that the lower we go are just blessings to be getting lower points for buying these altcoins for higher returns when the altcoin season hits. So that's what I got today. Weekly candle closes tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. There won't probably be too much movement between now and the weekly candle close, because it's the weekend and it's lower volume. But drop a like if you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions or you want me to go over any charts at all, or if try to clarify anything I've spoken about, let me know in the comments and I'll get back to you. And for now, see you next time.